Well, for more insights into China's demographic issues, we're joined by Cai Yong, Associate Professor of Sociology at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So give us a bit of background. What sort of changes have we seen in the birth rate since the one-child policy was lifted?
Okay, first we had a little bit of bump in 2016. Then, many of us, disappointment that the fertility actually dropped and the number of births dropped. So I think some people are still holding hope, but I think the reality now sits in that, without further action, China's fertility probably will continue to drop.
So we know that China has a growing middle class, more disposable income. So why do you think many couples are still unwilling to have a second or additional child?
I think as your lead stories, show us that, too many people are concerned about the cost. And indeed, as long as people's, calculation is focused on cost benefit, the education cost, all those things adds up quickly. So, having a child is more like a luxury. Many people probably desire to have something, but when you calculate all those hard costs, the choice is difficult.
Now, we saw that some of the government policies were put in place to really support having more children. How are those working out?
I think it's, from short term, we see a little bit upside, but, overall, the societal pressure is still very heavy, and I think people's time, in terms of cost, the other cost is time cost and opportunity cost. And in modern time, in modern China, they have so many other opportunities. So people are reluctant to sign up to a long-term contract. Having a child is a long-term commitment.
It certainly is. So in terms of ways that would perhaps encourage more parents to want to have more children, what needs to be put in place?
I think a couple of things. The government and the society really should think about not focus on short-term things. One thing I hear many people are saying, hey, if China put this policy out, we hope that it will deliver the result right away in a year or so. But the population problem are often built up in a decadal or generational time. China should focus on long-term. That's first. Second, I think should focus on the family side instead of try to think about what's the benefit to the society to start with. Most of people having kids not to contribute to society directly. So I think if we can ease the family's anxiety, like on education, on healthcare, that could certainly help. And thirdly, and last but not most, probably more important is, I think, why we all living to have a better life. So all the policies should focus on to empower people, and that way, when people think about having a next generation, it's a very liberating experience instead of taking up some kind of burden.
And speaking of burdens, obviously we know that this takes women out of the workforce, at least for a period. How do you see these looser birth restrictions affecting women's role in the workforce?
So that's a very interesting balance. As we say in other countries, actually the relationship between women's labor force participation has reversed with the fertility. In early modern time, that with women's labor force participation increase, fertility would decline. But in Europe, now you see actually it's reversed. Basically, if we can provide a better environment, better social protections, women's reproductive life and family life and the career may not necessarily be in a head-on collision. They could complement each other.
Now, it's interesting because we know that birth rates in the region as a whole, even in countries like Thailand that never had the policy, have still been falling steadily. So give us an idea of what's at stake for China's economy if birth rates stay at the current pace.
China's birth rate probably will continue to decline a bit for the decades to come. It will take at least a generation to reverse this trend. As you mentioned, that Thailand and other countries are all facing this declining process, basically as a way of we modernize our life. Our old setup, basically using family to take care of raise the next generation, is now falling apart. We rely on social support to do that, and the social support is not necessarily in place yet.
All right, thank you so much. Cai Yong there from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill.
Thank you.